are those who will say they care, and they will say it with the greatest of eloquence and theatrical pretense that you may even believe them. We, as a government, has acted with speed and alacrity because we are a government that genuinely cares for the people. Now, one thing that my administration tries to do is to approach these things with structure. And because we put a lot of effort into doing it correctly, we are not able to deliver at the speed of need.
Months after Hurricane Melissa tore through Jamaica, ripping roofs from homes and displacing tens of thousands, the government has begun highlighting the first wave of direct financial assistance to affected households. According to official statements, 50 residents have so far received grants of $500,000 each under the government's roof restoration program, a total payout of $25 million, which amounts to roughly 0.002% of the disaster-related funds Jamaica has secured.
It is one thing to say you care. It is another thing to have the cash to care. And it is one thing that this government has been able to do. Not just to say we care, but we have administered your affairs such that we have the cash to back up the care talk with action.
Let us break down the scale of the money the Jamaican government has received through Hurricane Melissa. Since Hurricane Melissa, Jamaica has secured billions of US dollars in disaster-related financing. This includes approximately 6.9 billion US dollars in combined international loans, budget support, and recovery financing pledged by multilateral institutions, including the IMF, World Bank, IDB, and others, spread over several years. 150 million US dollars from a World Bank-backed catastrophe bond, triggered automatically by the storm. 70.8 million US dollars from the Caribbean Catastrophe Risk Insurance Facility. Hundreds of millions of Jamaican dollars more raised through official donation platforms and international partners. These funds were justified publicly as necessary to stabilize the country, rebuild infrastructure, and support recovery after one of the most destructive storms in Jamaica's recent history. But let us take a closer look at what Jamaican households are actually seeing. Against that backdrop, the government's entire allocation for direct household reconstruction grants stands at 10 billion Jamaican dollars. That is roughly around 62 million US dollars. That figure represents less than 1% of the total external financing and insurance resources assembled in response to Hurricane Melissa. And even that limited allocation has barely begun to reach citizens.
And of course, the most important people in this ceremony, the beneficiaries of the ROOFs program. And you remember what the ROOFs acronym stands for? It's the restoration of owner or occupant family shelter. ROOFs. Quite appropriately coined. Now, just to be quick about it, already the government has distributed 1,234 grants under the ROOFs program. And they have done this by direct transfers, meaning it has gone from the bank account of the Ministry of Labor and Social Security into the bank account of the 1,234 beneficiaries. And that process will just be ongoing. As we verify a bank account, we send you a text to tell you that it has hit your bank account. These are mainly persons who would have received minor damage, but are also in the highly vulnerable category, primarily persons who are elderly, persons who are shut-in, persons with disability. But the government has also issued so far to 50 persons who have been assessed as having severe damage. So far, since we have started, which was just today, 50 persons have gotten their $500,000 grant to restore their roof.
So it's been proudly reported that the process made thus far is only 50 households have received the maximum roof repair grant. A further 1,234 beneficiaries are reported to have received transfers under the program, with no publicly itemized breakdown of the amounts paid out to them. 20 individuals received prepaid cards, again with undisclosed values. Measured strictly, the confirmed 25 million Jamaican dollars paid to severely affected households amounts to roughly 0.002% of the disaster-related funds Jamaica has secured. So there is an obvious gap between the rhetoric and the reality. Jamaican government officials have emphasized oversight and fraud prevention, even tasking the major organized crime and anti-corruption agency to monitor how grants are used. The Prime Minister himself, Dr. Andrew Holness, warned the recipients to ensure the money is spent exactly as intended. That warning may be necessary, but it also exposes a stark imbalance. The state is policing how a few $1,000s are spent by citizens, while billions remain centralized, deliberately slow-moving and largely invisible to the Jamaican public.
We are trying to deliver at the speed with accountability to satisfy your need. That is what we have been doing. And I think the pace at which we have been able to do so is a fairly good pace. And I will be asking Mocha to do a sampling for fraud in the recovery grants. In other words, we have to check that if you got a grant, that you actually use it for the purpose you got the grant for. So I want to sound the warning clearly that if you get the grant, the portion of the grant that is directed at your roof, fix your roof, start your roof, buy it, because I know what's going to happen. Let me tell you. We know because we have constituents and we give grants to people, and sometimes people go to the hardware and they get the building grant and they go and they buy the 10 sheet of zinc and the 2x4 and the lat and so forth. And they do go home and they fix. But some get the grant and they go to the hardware and they stand up there and they watch and see who coming in. And then they say, you want to buy some zinc? And so here's the grant. See the farmer, you go inside here and you just give me $10,000 and you take it and go buy what you want. Now, the way in which we are giving the grants now, it might not be so easy to do that because the grants are restricted as to where you can spend them and what you can spend them on. But people can still find their ways and we will be checking.
For families still living under tarpaulins or patching roofs with salvaged zinc and concrete blocks, the question is not whether oversight exists. It is why relief is almost non-existent when resources on paper are so vast. Let us approach this logically and review what the numbers imply. As they say, numbers don't lie. To be clear, not all disaster financing is meant to be handed out as cash. Much of it is earmarked for infrastructure, debt support, and macroeconomic stability. But international disaster frameworks also recognize a basic principle. Recovery that does not reach households is not recovery, it is accounting. When less than 1 cent of every disaster dollar reaches homeowners directly, the legitimacy of the recovery effort comes into question. For many Jamaicans, Hurricane Melissa did more than devastate homes and livelihoods. In the aftermath, it has morphed into a catalyst, a moment of reckoning that now tests the government's accountability, credibility, transparency, and commitment to those left most exposed. The government has demonstrated its ability to mobilize international financing rapidly. What remains unproven is its ability to translate that financial power into timely, tangible relief for ordinary Jamaicans, the very people in whose name those billions were secured. Until that changes, each new announcement of a small grant sounds less like meaningful progress, but acts as evidence of just how much remains undone.